Hello, and today's video is just a little bit of a refresh and a reminder of what you need to be doing for your Maxcorp games and your development of that, and when your hand-in is for next week, as I've mentioned in emails before, and what that's going to look like depending on what access you've got and what you can work on as you go through. All of you will be able to submit something. Okay, so don't think that just because you haven't got access to Stencyl or anything like that you won't be able to. We've taken that into account, obviously, and we've got an outline within this video of what you can do. So first things first, what we would be expecting for next week isn't the finished article. So we're not expecting you to be completely done by next week. What we're hoping is that we can see quite a big progression next week in terms of what you've done, what you've created, what you've developed, and then maybe give you another week or so to finish it off so that we can get final versions of whatever you've been developing for the following week. So that would be essentially the first week of May, I think. So that's what we're looking at. So I'm just going to go through what you should have been working on and what you should be looking at, just so that you've got it clear in your head. So let's just jump over here first. So you've seen this in an email. I've got it in a Google Doc at the moment, but you've seen this in an email, and this is what you chose. So we had our little checklist, and I asked you a few questions, and we based our game around this. So your main character was going to be human. The setting of the game was going to be in prison. Collectibles were parts of a machine, and the enemies were robots. The narrative idea was we've got to get out of this place, and the victory condition, quite neatly, is escape. So that was your ideas that you picked out of the survey that you did, and then there is your actual brief as you go through. I'm not going to read it all through. You've seen it all already before, but Dr. Sam Brown going through the Metro City high security prison, trying to escape with the bits and pieces that he's needing to escape with. All right, and then you've got the scenario in the brief there with some elements in red there that you know that you need to decide. Okay, and what's your spin on that going to be? And then we looked at the game brief and what we needed to be in the game. So if you are set up on Stencyl and you're able to access everything as normal, then this is what we would ideally be looking at. And if you're not, then there's tweaks and changes to this a little bit as we go through. Character design for Sam Brown with animations, 4 different levels, 3 levels and 1 boss level, menu screens and you died or you escaped screens, so to show your victory condition or your death condition, tile sets, collectibles, NPCs, health system, tack method, so on and so forth. All right, so you've got access to a number of different things, okay? If you can't get Stencyl working on your machine because it's for whatever reason, then you should still be able to access your Piscal stuff just through any browser, any machine if you've got onto. So if you've got access to a machine, even kind of low spec laptops can run this without any problems. So you should still have been able to develop some of your character designs and some of your animations and bits and pieces that you'll be able to share with us. Equally, you've got Beatbox, remember, that you can create your sounds in and develop your tunes, and you can save them as URLs and have them to submit later on and go on and develop those. And then remember, we haven't used this huge amount, but we have talked about it and I have shared it in other videos and other emails to you. This is Photopea. This is a online Photoshop, so it does not have all of the functionality that Photoshop does, but if you can't get access to that or you haven't got anything else that's similar, then this again is web-based. You don't need to install anything, you don't need to load anything. I think you can sign in and then you can save stuff and go back to stuff a lot easier, so you can sign up to the actual site, but again, it's really simple to use. A lot of the skills that we've looked at in Photoshop already, you will be able to transfer into this without any problems. Okay, so you've all got, if you've got a computer and you've got web access, then you've all got systems that you can get to. What I wanted to go through is the submission criteria, and there are 3 different types of submission criteria. So if you've got Stencyl, if you've got a computer without Stencyl and you haven't been able to install it or it hasn't been able to run, I know a few of you have been in contact with me and it's been a bit buggy and things like that. And finally, if you haven't got access to a computer at all, hopefully you've got access to a phone or something like that, so that you can snap what I'm going to go through and send it as a link or anything like that, so that we can actually see it in some shape and form. All right, so deadline is for Wednesday next week, end of the day Wednesday, so 4:30 is normal for Wednesday next week. So you've got the rest of the weekend and the first part of next week to go through, and you had Wednesday's deadline this week, so you should hopefully have a nice kind of week's amount of work to go through and have a look at. All right, so just going through, I'm going to go through each section for you, so you can always skip through until you get to the right section. So with Stencyl, so we'd like to see a few levels now linked together. It doesn't need to be all of them, so I stipulated that it needed to be about at least 3 levels and a boss level, or 4 levels in however you develop that. But hopefully you've now got a few levels linked together, looking at how that interactive element is working, how you transition from one level to another, and things like that. All right, showing those required assets in place and interacting as your narrative requires. So you should have your main character developed with some animations in there. You might have the 2 NPCs that they're interacting with. You might have a block of enemies that you're combating. However you've developed that as you go through. Showcasing the other assets. So by now we should be able to see some of your backgrounds, and we should be able to see hopefully some of the sounds that you're using as well. So sourcing some of those sound effects and developing some of those soundtracks maybe into your game, into your menu screen as you go through different levels, however you're using them differently to tell the story. What we'd like you to do is to export them out in 2 ways. So if you can publish them as a shockwave file like we do normally, that would be fantastic. Remember, I think you need to sign in to do that, so you just need to sign in to Stencyl so that you get that option, and then if you can export them as a native Stencyl file, that would be great. Just in case we can't see the shockwave file, or just in case it's not publishing, we can load them up and see them in Stencyl in situ. And equally, if you've got any issues and you've got any bugs or anything like that in your coding, that's the easiest way that we can look at it and access it and try and work out what it is. Again, a few of you have been emailing about a few glitches and problems that you've had, and sometimes that's the best way that we can look at that. If you can, and for you guys this is an add-on, if you've got this and you've been developing it as you go, fantastic. If you haven't done this, then please don't panic. Focus on the Stencyl stuff and the coding and the developing of your game as a priority. But if you can do this, it would be great to see how you've developed that initial PowerPoint that we asked you to set up with your ideas and everything like that. So the developments, the changes, anything new that you've done, anything different that you've developed, any tweaks that you've put in along the way that might not be visible in your game at the moment, or might be different versions of what we're seeing in the final version. So if you can do that, that would be great, so that we've got that portfolio backup underneath the actual game itself. All right, so that's if you've got Stencyl and you've got access to it, that's what we're expecting. Without Stencyl, but with a computer. All right, so what we'd like to see is a really nicely developed portfolio of your ideas and how they are coming along. All right, if you've got access to a computer, then the character design for the main character, Dr. Sam Brown, should be fairly easy for you to come up with. All right, you've got access to a computer and internet, then you should be able to work on Piscal and develop that quite nicely, looking at how the look of it has developed, how the animations work, and anything like that. One thing I would say is that if you've only got access to internet for a short period of time, you can download Beatbox and Piscal as a standalone installation on your machine, so you don't have to have internet access all the time. With Photopea, I think you need to be online to use it. I don't think you can download a standalone version for it, but you might need to check that. It might be wrong, I'm not sure. Okay, so character designs for Dr. Sam Brown, 4 background designs for different levels. Okay, so what the background is looking at, and that might be in a few different ways. So you might design some stuff in Photopea or in Piscal, and then you might build on that and have different assets in front of them, or mimic what your tile sets might look like, or anything along those lines. So I will leave that up to your imagination of how you can show those 4 different background levels. some form of font consideration for your windscreens, and that might again be something that you've developed in Piskel and created yourself, or it might be stuff if you go on defont.com and find fonts that are working with your style and with the look and feel of your game, then you can have that as a secondary source stuff. But please, if you're using secondary source stuff, and even if you're using primary source stuff, please tell me why you're developing that, why you've chosen that, why you're going for that style over anything else as you go through. 2 NPC character designs, so similar to your main character. Show me what you've developed in terms of the look of your NPCs or your enemies or anything like that, how they might fit into your game. And then finally, links to your sound effects and to two soundtracks ideas. So anything you've created in Beatbox, anything that you've sourced or found in terms of sound effects, and having those links in there. If you can embed it in the PowerPoint so I can just click on it and play it, that would be marvellous. It's fairly simple to do. If you can't work it out, then please don't panic. Just put the links in and I should be able to, and Chris and I should be able to jump off and have a look at where they are on the internet so we can have a look at them. All right, so that's if you've got a computer and you've got access to the internet but you haven't got Stencyl. All right, and last but by no means least, if you haven't got access to a computer at all, then we've done a lot of work in terms of how we can develop ideas and how we can look at different ways throughout this the start of this year already. So this is what I would want you to do. All right, so concept designs for Dr. Sam Brown. So similar to everyone else, they could be Piskel based, they could be developed on quite a simple colour palette or a simple block design as if you were creating them in Pixel. That's absolutely fine. What would be good is to see how they formulate into something that's maybe more realistic and more developed, as if you were making it a photorealistic AAA game. All right, so play around with how you can develop those concept ideas. Go back and look at what we did at the start of the year in that unit as we went through. All right, in a similar way, concept designs for your 2 NPC characters. In the same setup, looking at how you develop the idea from something that may start as really simple and go through to something that's a bit more complicated, and annotate it and show it in different ways so that we can see what you're talking about and what you're going through. I'm just going to jump to a different setup. There's my overhead. There we go. All right. So in terms of character design, sorry, I'm just grabbing a book that's just down here. I'll show you what I mean. I've just got something that I did. It's not a perfect example, but it's just something. So I've got this little design here. And don't worry that you can't read my writing. You're not meant to. But this was just something I was playing around with before and mucking about with. This is a character from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that I was just kind of copying from the art book and playing around with. But it's little things like this. Don't worry if you're annotating all over the place with notes or sketches or drawings. When I designed this, I thought kind of I'd got the eyes wrong, so I just very quickly next to it I did a different version of the head and played around with that a little bit more so I can get a sense of where I might have gone wrong and what I could have developed. So you've got things like that you can do. I think I've got another one on this page. So there's another sketch there of him himself as well, playing around with colour palettes as well, and different bits and pieces like that. So you can do all of that with just a pen and a paper. And if you haven't got access to kind of decent pens or anything like that, then I do most of my work in a biro to begin with. So as long as you've got a pencil or a pen or something that you can start with, all we're looking for is how you are developing those ideas and you're working with the Maxcorp scenario and developing those ideas for the characters and the designs in a similar way. All right. So that's your character designs. Next up, 4 different background designs, ideally drawn out and set out. Now you can do this in a number of different ways. You can design them and kind of create them as if they are in the game themselves. Okay, so that they're all styled, they're all coloured in, they're all designed up nicely. That's absolutely great and that's fine. And you can use elements of tile sets or smaller assets to make it look more realistic and create that environment as you go through. Or you could do it similar to this. Now this, let's get it the right way up. There we go. All right, so this is a sketched out plan of a test level that I did about 12 months ago for the current upper sixth, as they were starting to go into Unity and starting to look at things. And I created this game in Unity so that they could see the different elements of it. And this is where I started. Okay, this is a really simple sketched out route around the level. Okay, so you start here and you go in and you're going through and then you meet some people within this kind of bar area that I'd created, and that's where you first find your pickups and you find out kind of different things that can damage you, and then you can pick up a health straight away. So this is the tutorial level, if you like, walking you through it. You carry on through and you kind of have to walk over this little gun pickup that gives you your first weapon, and then there's a little target practice just in the corner of this corridor here, and then as you turn that way you've got an enemy that's coming towards you. So developing the level bit by bit, stage by stage, so that you can see what's happening and what's going through. So this is obviously like a 3D level, so just a top-down view of it. But you can do this on a side scrolling view if you want to, so you can map out the different elements as you go through. You then come into this bit and you've got moving platforms going on, you've got different enemies coming at you. There's a key in the corner that you need to pick up so that once you get to the end you've got the key to get through the door. And then as you go through you've got different pickups that you go through and different enemies that you are encountering in this final bit. All right, you've got swarm of enemies that are coming through. That's what those little circles are for. All right, so in terms of your background designs, you can mock up 4 or more different versions like this to show how your level might work from start to finish, without even having any kind of access to the digital elements. So you can still show that narrative development as you go through. So 4 different background designs, either styled and drawn out nicely on the page so that you can take a snap of it and send it through to us, or if you want to, you can map it out like I've just shown you, so that you've got a different kind of sense of where your level is going and how it's being created. All right. And last but by no means, if you can't get onto Beatbox, and like I say, remember, Beatbox is online, you don't need to install anything, you don't need to do anything, so you should hopefully be able to maybe play around with it on your phone. It might be kind of worth having a go and seeing what you can come up with. I'm not sure, but if you haven't got access to that, then what we'd like you to do is try and source 4 different royalty-free clips. That's the key bit for you guys. I want you to do a little bit of research and a little bit of groundwork to make sure that they're royalty-free. So think about your search criteria, think about where you're looking. You can find royalty-free stuff really easily on YouTube, but pick tunes and music that match the feel and the sense of your game and where you want your narrative to go. All right, so if you can, create your own on Beatbox and have a go, see if you can get it working on your phone, and if you can't, then you should hopefully still be able to search different bits and pieces through YouTube and find those royalty-free tracks and see what you've got through. All right, so you've got 3 different elements there that we would like you to see. So those of you that have got access to Stencyl, you know what you need to do. Those of you that have got access to a computer but haven't got access to Stencyl, and then finally those of you that haven't got access to any computer, but hopefully you've got a phone or something where you can take a picture of what you've got. Now this is based on what I know we have used, what works well and anything like that. If you have been playing around and you found different things that you know will work and you think will be beneficial to everyone else, then please let me know, and I'll have a look and I'll check them out, and Chris and I will go through them, and if we think that they could work for other people, and that could be apps that you can download on your phone, that could be different websites that we can source, it could be software that's really simple to install, then please let us know. And that way we can have a look at it and we can share the love and farm that out to everyone else. All right, so deadline is for the end of play on Wednesday of next week, Wednesday 29th. Just check I've got my dates right. I have. All right, so Wednesday the 29th is when we're expecting to see that next stage. I will put a Moodle link in the email that's with this video, so that you know where to upload it and go through. Loads of you that do in Stencyl, I can't remember if I mentioned it, but you might be able to upload your Stencyl outputs to Moodle. They might come out too large. If that is the case, then just upload them to OneDrive, and then you can upload the link from OneDrive to Moodle so that we can click on the link and see it. Just make sure that we've got access, and that will be fine. All right. All of these will be in the email, and I will do a little link to this whole document in the description of this video so that you can see what's going on. Hope you're all right. We're really looking forward to seeing what you've developed and what you've come up with, especially those of you that have been able to kind of crack on with Stencyl and access that still. It will be great to see your games and play your games, and then hopefully share them out with everyone else so that we can see what you've all been doing. All right, any questions, then obviously email us and let us know, and we will go from there. But we'll expect to see some development of your Maxcorp ideas and scenarios for Wednesday of next week. All right, I'll speak to you soon.